antifungal effect of Chitosan nanoparticle. So let's give a warm applause to Mr. Abram as he takes the stage.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, first of all, yes, my slides, please. I do have to clarify something. My title is not this. This is Esteemed Gentleman Victor Lisian. This is not my slide. Next one, please. No, not this one. Okay, so antifungal effects of chitosan nanoparticles is actually supposed to be green synthesis of modified water-soluble phenolic acid conjugated chitosan nanoparticles, characterization and biological activity against fungal plant pathogens. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, my name is Abraham Georgian Ming, matriculation number 2302019-8. My supervisor is Professor Dr. Awang, and my co-supervisor is Dr. Nyang Noi Singh. So, next please. This is my problem statement, ladies and gentlemen. Chitosan is biocompatible, it is edible, and it possesses antifungal properties. However, it is not water soluble. Why is this a problem? Because, ladies and gentlemen, water solubility limits its functionality in everyday uses. To have something that is water soluble will help it to be able to be transported more easily because we can dilute it in something neutral rather than something acidic. Chitosan normally is soluble in acidic medium. However, that is not good for storage. It is not really safe with humans because if you spill some acid on your hand, you're going to have a bad time. So, ladies and gentlemen, making water soluble chitosan will help us to be able to transport it in a neutral medium, or at least as close to neutral as we can make it, and make it a lot safer for day-to-day consumption. What uses they are, I'll cover them later. And ladies and gentlemen, Fusarium, Coletotrichum, and Rhizoctonia sp are harmful fungi that cause high yield loss. Together, they account for a significant majority of crop loss every single year. Ladies and gentlemen, next please. So this is the hypothesis. First of all, the null hypothesis is that the chitosan nanoparticles produced possess antifungal properties. The alternative hypothesis is that the chitosan nanoparticles do not possess antifungal properties. Next, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, research questions. How are chitosan nanoparticles sourced from? Mud crab, vary in yield, ash percentage, FTIR spectra, degree of deacetylation, antioxidant properties, SCM morphologies, antifungal properties, and UV visible spectrometry. I will explain each and every single one of these factors one by one as we continue throughout this presentation. So, next please. Here are my objectives, ladies and gentlemen. Over here, you see itself. This is a prototype of water-soluble chitosan. It manifests itself as a clear white liquid. This is not water-soluble. I'm working on it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm working on it. First of all, we'll extract chitosan from Scilla olivacea, which is mud crabs. Secondly, we'll produce water-soluble chitosan nanoparticles from Scilla olivacea. Why are nanoparticles important, ladies and gentlemen? Long story short, larger surface area, larger area of contact with fungi, larger antifungal effect. And to analyze the physicochemical and antifungal properties of water-soluble chitosan nanoparticles produced from Scilla olivacea. I'll walk back into the frame. All right, next please. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is chitosan? Chitosan is also known as poly-1,4-beta-link and acetyl-D-glucosamine, or this thing right here. Good luck, ladies and gentlemen. There are three different types, alpha, beta, and gamma chitin. So, they all differ in microfibril orientation. The stability of the intermolecular hydrogen bonds increases stability of the structure, and it forms microfibrils if crystallization occurs. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the natural property of chitosan. It intends to manifest as a solid. It has a tendency to restrict fungal and antimicrobial growth and stimulate immune response in humans. It can be found in US military bandage dressings to prevent wound infection. It is also found in extremely high class food packaging to also prevent bacterial growth and increase the shelf life of the food. Next, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, why are we using phenolic compounds? In layman's terms, we are attaching a phenolic compound to the buttock of chitosan so that it will have a longer tail. With the longer tail, it will have a stronger antioxidant property. So, with these phenolic acids, which are gallic acid, lactic acid, tannic acid, and vanillin, these are the 4 phenolic acids that are part of my research. So, they possess antifungal properties with different modes of operation. These compounds also enable chitosan to become water soluble if it is grafted into its active sites. Next, please. And ladies and gentlemen, why are we targeting the fungal pathogens that we are targeting? First of all, Fusarium sp causes head blight and affect wheat, barley, and corn. Cholecalciferum sp affect banana and corn, causing red rot and is ranked 8th most dangerous fungi in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia does have a significant market for banana, corn not so much, but banana is a main concern. We export plenty of Cavendish bananas. The really high class, you could say, bananas that are all smooth and yellow and they're about this big. We export a significant amount of the world's bananas. We have to find a way to tackle that. And Rhizoctonia sp affects rice and causes up to 50% yield loss when infected, ladies and gentlemen. We are not Asia's rice bowl, but Kedah does produce a lot of the rice that Malaysia eats. We also export rice as one of our key export market products. So that is why it is critical to target these 3 fungi. Next, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is the chitosan development flowchart. First of all, chitosan extraction. Secondly, water-soluble chitosan production. Thirdly, water-soluble chitosan nanoparticle production. Fourthly, verification of purity. Fifth, antifungal testing. And sixth, statistical analysis. Next, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, here is the most tedious, excruciating, expensive part of extracting chitosan. It is only expensive because crabs are expensive, ladies and gentlemen. You will see things get even more and more expensive later on. Why? You'll find out. Drying and grinding shells followed by demineralization, followed by deproteinization, followed by deacetylation. That is the basic process without going into too much detail. There's a lot of stirring and blending involved. I am currently running up against my 10-minute limit. Next, please. It's okay. I will carry on. So the next stage is producing water-soluble chitosan using graft polymerization initiated by redox pair. So, first of all, we'll add hydrogen peroxide and ascorbic acid to chitosan under nitrogen flushing. So after that, we'll add gallic acid in order to conjugate the 2 of them, chitosan and gallic acid, and followed by dialysis. In this stage, gallic acid can be replaced by any of the phenolic acids, vanillin or the other 2 phenolic acids. Next, please. The third part is producing water-soluble chitosan nanoparticles. The method is called ionic cross-linking using sodium tripolyphosphate. So first of all, we'll add chitosan to sodium tripolyphosphate. We'll stir and centrifuge, wash, dry, and freeze dry. This method was chosen because it is relatively simple. However, sodium tripolyphosphate is incredibly expensive at about 1,000 ringgit for 20 grams, if I remember correctly. This is where things start getting really expensive. The method is easy, the money is big. So that is the SEM of what we're supposed to get. Chitosan nanoparticles, we're supposed to get that. Unfortunately, I'll tell you later what's going on. Next. Determining yield and ash content. So following this formula, we'll determine the yield and we'll determine the ash content. Why is ash content important? Higher ash content is linked with higher antifungal properties. Yield is because In my previous batches that are produced, chitosan yield, just from crabs to chitosan, is 0.121% per stage. So every stage you get 0.121% of yield. At the end, when I get chitosan nanoparticles, I only get 0.0001% of yield. It is painful, ladies and gentlemen. It hurts. Next, please. All right, determining degree of the acetylation and FTIR spectra. Usage of Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy, because this will give us data on what's inside the chitosan, the compounds that make up the chitosan, and these two very important, amine 1 and OH. These two will tell us if we actually have chitosan. If the rest of the spectra match and we don't have these two, it's not chitosan. Next, please. Determining water solubility, ladies and gentlemen. How do you determine water solubility? By adding it in a different ratio of water. It's that simple. Next, please. Spectrum analysis, UV-Vis. So this is the UV-Vis spectrum, theoretically, of chitosan. This shows the presence of the benzene ring in the chitosan nanoparticle. Without the benzene ring, it's not a chitosan nanoparticle. Simple as that. Next, please. Antifungal properties. This is the money, ladies and gentlemen. This is the reason why we invest our money in this chemical. Because we want to make something that is marketable. We want to make something we can sell to people. We want to make something we can put in a spray bottle, ship it out, and tell the farmer, okay, you spray this on your plant will grow better and you get higher yield. Yay. Okay, next. So antioxidant properties, this is quite a standard test. This is just a test if we have any bonus antioxidant properties in the chitosan. The absorbance at 570 nanometers will be measured. Higher percentage of scavenging of DPPH means higher free radical scavenging activity and a higher antioxidant ability. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is using the scanning electron microscope just to determine the morphological characteristics. So this just gives us a broad idea of whether or not we have nanoparticles and the type of nanoparticles that we get. Are they tallying with what other people have researched? That's the use of the chitosan nanoparticles being scanned under the scanning electron microscope. Next, please. Ladies and gentlemen, statistical analysis, you can't escape this. This is in everyone's project. The experiment will triplicated, mean standard deviation, and one way and over test, and the Duncan test will be used. Next, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, what are the expected outcomes? So, water-soluble chitosan nanoparticles will be extracted from Scylla olivacea. Physicochemical properties of water-soluble chitosan nanoparticles will be extracted from Mercas and analyzed, and antifungal properties of water-soluble chitosan nanoparticles will be analyzed. Next, please. So here is my work schedule, ladies and gentlemen. I hope to complete in 2025. Unfortunately, due to multiple delays, we will not hit the schedule, ladies and gentlemen. We will find another way to hit the schedule and hopefully graduate. Next, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, so this is my progress report, my research findings, the optimization of the chitosan manufacturing process. So, next, please. 3D printed components, ladies and gentlemen. So, I have been hard at work analyzing the production process of chitosan and water-soluble chitosan in of itself. So the thing about water-soluble chitosan, it suffers from contamination. Our lab is filled with fungal spores, and which is kind of a bad sign because I'm trying to make something that's supposed to be antifungal. However, it keeps getting contaminated with fungi. That is a really bad sign, and I hope it doesn't jinx me down the line. But this is the latest in advancement of optimization process. Not only do we have have you heard of like ritual with all the candles all around your table where you put everything in a DIY fume hood, which is just a cardboard box with aluminum foil in it so that the spores don't drop in. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you 3D printed nitrogen flow caps. This, ladies and gentlemen, allows inflow and exit of nitrogen into the reaction chamber, which is just a 50 ml Scott bottle. So there are two pipes they go in here and they go out here. The one that goes in is a lot lower. The one that goes out is a lot higher. So when the gas goes in, it goes straight down and it hits the juice at the bottom. And when it goes out, the pipe's a little higher up. So what that means is when the nitrogen flow gushes down and hits the juice, there's going to be a lot of splashing. The pipe higher up means that the splash won't force the liquid all the way back out and out the other end. You don't want that. So, next slide, please. This is the product on a 3D print bed. I will be selling this very soon to all of you who use inert gas flow methodologies on Scott bottles. This thing fits a standard blue cap Scott bottle, and all you have to do is just seal it up with parafilm. The design is being optimized still. I am aware of several weak spots throughout the top of throughout this seam over here. But ladies and gentlemen, on sale soon, 5 ringgit a unit. Get 3 for 10, ladies and gentlemen. So, this prevents backflow. And okay, it goes in here and it goes out here and it prevents backflow, ladies and gentlemen. It enables better airflow with less ejection of Chitosan product, with a better seal on the bottom to prevent contamination, ladies and gentlemen. Investors always welcome. If anyone wants to look into 3D printed lab use items, PLA, PETG, ABS, me and my friend, we share a 3D printer and we are open for investments, ladies and gentlemen. Always a business opportunist. Next, please. So DIY agar formula. Middle of last year, our lab ran out of agar. Straight out ran out of agar. The only reason why was because no supply. All the FYP kids used up our agar. And then I had to stop work just so that my other friends who were doing fungi, actual proper fungi, could continue and make sure their fungi didn't die. So, am I good on time? Okay. So, this is my DIY agar formula, fully optimized for use with Fusarium SB. The main attraction, it uses food grade agar and boiled potato broth. There is zero chemical, there's zero lab grade stuff in this, and it still grows Fusarium. So, a bottle of PDA, potato dextrose agar, for half a kilo costs about 400-500 ringgit. That's for half a kilo of powder. This thing, it costs a few cents, maybe 10 or 20 ringgit per half kilo. All you have to do is just buy a specific type of powder, agar powder, and a specific type of potato. Private limited, I won't tell you the secret yet. I have to publish it. It's called Open Potato. It's open source potato-based recipes. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, next please. So, ladies and gentlemen, constant production of water-soluble chitosan. This is a problem that I faced. 60% contamination rate due to spores and nitrogen flow issues, which is why I designed that cap thing, which is why I'm currently doing all my stuff with a Bunsen burner. I'm currently doing all my stuff with increased hygiene protocols. That's putting it lightly, ladies and gentlemen. So all throughout 2024, I try my best to constantly produce and optimize the process. I would say that it is pretty optimized right now. I hope for the best. Next, please. This, ladies and gentlemen, is fungi. It's fluffy, it's powdery, it might be bacteria. I'm not sure where it comes from. I didn't isolate it because that's not the focus of my research. I might isolate it if you're interested. If anyone is interested in a really strong, really strong fungus that can grow in something that's supposed to be antifungal, then yeah, come ahead, hit me up. I have some samples sitting on my desk. Next, please. Yep. This is the bacteria contaminating my chitosan. The fungi was difficult to isolate. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I have bacteria too inside. It's two things. It's both bacteria and fungi. Yay. Next. So, ladies and gentlemen, the FTIR machine is repaired. In case any of you PG want to use it, actually repaired. I wait 8 months for the machine to get repaired and reached out to several other places that I thought had FDR machines and I failed, but good luck. Yay, the FDR machine is back. We have some positive results. It matches something of what I see in the journals. Yay. Next. And ladies and gentlemen, this is not exactly relevant, but it is relevant to the fact that we can optimize Trichoderma habitat. So Trichoderma sp is one of the fungi that I'm considering testing Chitosan against. However, it is really strong, so that is why it is not part of my main proposal. It is one of the fungi used by my FRP and commonly found in the lab. It might be what's contaminating my Chitosan, I do not know. So with the help of Jordan, we have optimized the habitat of this furry fungi. So that's what I've been up to so far. Next, please. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, shameless self-promotion. Please buy AgriBioActive SF Biofertilizer. This is Prof. Awang's not latest. It's been out since 2016, but we are marketing it, ladies and gentlemen. Unimass self-produced biofertilizer, innovative new recipe of 3 secret bacteria, currently open for investments.